All right, I'll call to order this meeting of the Law, Ordinance, and Human Resources Committee meeting. On the agenda, we've got discussion of diversion program within the city of Norwood. Now, I know this was discussed a little bit, I believe, in council, a full council, that we do have some sort of program. I'm unaware of what our program actually entailed back then. If Mr. Moore wants to enlighten a little bit.
Well, as far as like a diversion program, which is kind of the model is drug courts, where instead of sending you to jail, if you go through rehab, you can, if you successfully go through rehab, we'll drop the criminal charges against you. We've not really had, kind of a formal one for those that are eligible for, well, we don't do any drug cases in Mayor's Court anymore, but even marijuana. But for the drug cases, those go downtown. There's a theft diversion program. There are some dealing with driver's license issues, I think, but most of those are through the county and for the people that would be, if they're, if we don't know when they're cited and they come to Mayor's Court and they, it looks like they might be eligible, we'll transfer the case downtown, but the county handles most of those. What we used to do in the past, a lot of times, it would be like a public service thing, and especially for, I think most commonly, it'd be like Xavier students, underage drinkers, kind of things, where, okay, tell you do 16 hours community service, pay $150 monitoring charge, and we'll drop this, underage consumption charge kind of thing. So the thing that changed there, and I think this is partly, mainly it's manpower, but it's when Robert moved over from auxiliary to maintaining and custodian work at City Hall. We not had the people, and so I talked to the chief. Well, I emailed with the chief a little bit, and he said, "Yeah, we're looking to hire more auxiliaries, but yeah, we would be in a position now to be able to do that if the magistrate wants to sentence somebody to that. So we can talk to the magistrate and say, hey, listen, they're up for doing that again."
What does Norwood hold an unofficial juvenile court?
No, there was a short time, a few years, that the city did, but all juvenile cases go downtown.
Okay, so there's no chance of us being able to take a juvenile who may steal a bike and we're able to identify them to bring them to Mayor's Court and maybe go through a diversion program that we create with a resident or somebody within the city who's might be able to handle it or do it?
Juvenile court it pretty much is, for the most part, except for really serious offenses or or kids that have been through the system a whole bunch of times. It kind of is a diversion program. The idea is to rehabilitate the kids. It's not to punish them. And so for things like stealing a bike, kids don't go to juvenile hall. I mean, they don't have detention because of that. They are, they may go through treatment. They may go through, theft diversion classes. They may, social worker may work with the family. But yeah, juveniles, generally, juvenile court is not designed to be punitive. Sometimes it can kind of seem like it is, but the idea is to rehabilitate kids. And so if it's a kid steals a bike and they've never had any problems before, juvenile court that's kind of what it's designed for, is to kind of put a little fear in them, see if we can get them some tools, and them and the families, the tools to help straighten, move on a better path.
And a lot of these questions that I'm going to ask you, I want coming from you versus me.
Okay.
So that way that way it's coming from our actual law department. That's kind of why I'm asking some of the questions I am. Mm-hmm. Would there be an opportunity for us to work with the juvenile detention center to maybe do a diversion program within the city that involves maybe crimes that happen within the city versus looking at a universal diversion program that they do?
I guess in theory, I'm not sure what exactly that would entail, to be honest with you. And I'm not sure who working for the city would do it.
Mr. Gaber?
When I was on council very early on, I had gotten something like that started. And we had like Norwood kids that got in trouble. Instead of sending them downtown, we set up our own little court. And it was, you do community service and some things like that. Maybe it's cleaning in the schools or whatever. And I don't know whatever happened to that. It kind of got by the wayside, but I had that set up early on. I mean, it was in the early 2000s.
And the reason that I brought or the reason that Chris really brought this up again and brought it to light is Chris and I had a discussion with Mr. James back in July of last year, around that time frame, to try and incorporate his group in the diversion process to where they would help around with his group in order to accumulate those community service hours for Norwood kids that get into trouble or something like that. Kind of I guess a local diversion program. That's why I was trying to find out if there's a way that we could do it with the help of maybe a nonprofit.
I think in theory you probably could set something up along those lines. I mean, if it's a juvenile court, there's a lot that goes with that. And I think that kind of the cost that were involved at the time and the few number of cases that actually came in through, I think that's kind of why it went by the wayside. It's a lot of time and effort, and I don't think there were that many kids that went through the process. I would think that if there's a group that wants to work with the kids and help them work on that kind of thing, that the step would be to, Mr. James, Reverend James, would be to contact the juvenile court downtown and see, what they, what it would take to, I want to be a part of this as a place where kids can be referred in order to either do community service or, work on something else in order to get the right things taken care of before you come in for a disposition kind of thing.
I got a few comments on, so I thought that I remembered something about this a while ago, and if my memory serves, that liability is an issue if we partner some sort of program that takes these youngins or whoever and puts them and gets them hurt or something like that. There's a liability there. So I think I heard that because of the liability and the way we basically just how where we're at in society right now, the liability makes it tough for you to take your children, and for us to sponsor something like that. That's a liability. Also, has anybody talked to the chief of, and is there like an influx of young people like in the system, like right here around us, that like is this a need, or is this just something that just like, has the chief of police said that we have an influx of young people that need this type of thing in here around here?
This kind of all came about last year when we started having a lot of the bike thefts going on, and speaking with Pastor James about some of the stuff and some of the other incidents that had gone on within the city at that time period, we thought that we could come up with a plan somewhere around October, November, which it didn't pan out due to everything that was going on. And this was a much better time at this point to try and reevaluate that discussion or reevaluate the situation. Essentially, I couldn't tell you right now where the crime is as far as Norwood and Norwood juveniles. I haven't checked into that myself. But I do know we had an influx back in July and August of last year. That's what kind of sparked this discussion back with Pastor James and myself and Chris.
If I could, I'd like to add some things.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I mean, just quickly to answer Mr. Braden's questions to my perspective of them. Yeah, there was an influx of some bike thefts and little minor stuff like that, but for me it was more of a good idea based on just the current scale of crime that we have, whether it's, and not just talking youth in Norwood, but just anybody in general, like speeding tickets, parking tickets, low-level misdemeanors, nonviolent crimes, ticketed offenders, so they can leave, any financial hardship that they might have by receiving that fine or that judgment from Norwood. And the reason that I think that would be a really good idea is it's some free labor for the city, one, and I think for the most part they're going to be going around doing like litter cleanup and stuff, I believe, would be the most bulk of it. And our parks have quite a bit of litter. As we were talking before at last council meeting, some of our parks are lacking some trash cans, stuff like that. So people are throwing trash on the ground. Our highways are notoriously kind of a little bit dirty, so this gives an opportunity to give some help to the public works employees, the city as a whole. And the reason that I really like this as well, and just to backtrack a little bit, I think what I recommended diversion program is probably like not the right terminology. From what Mr. Moore kind of said, it should maybe be more like a community service kind of thing. Just kind of what I was thinking. And also a point I wrote down is it gives offenders the opportunity to kind of learn the value of community in their constructive rehabilitation. Mr. Moore might have a better answer here, but I believe that this community service could be overseen by possibly auxiliary police officers if, we get Chief Kramer in the fold and kind of see what the manpower looks like there. If not, we have various volunteer groups, nonprofit groups throughout the city that might have interest in helping out. We have various church groups throughout the city that might be interested in helping out. And if that's the case, some of these offenders, whether they're youth or adult, could have the opportunity of getting in touch with these groups and maybe learning more about what they do, learning more about the community value. And maybe it changes kind of the stuff going on that brought them to be, in this situation in the first place. So I just think it would be a good idea to look at, not necessarily based on, hey, we got this influx right here and we need to solve this, but kind of just based on what we already have, what we already see, and giving a different opportunity for offenders to give back to our community in a way that I think is mutually beneficial.
And I also think, kind of add to compound on what he said, which was great. The fact that maybe possibly some of these adult or juvenile defenders end up sticking with these groups, sticking with these nonprofits to help the nonprofits out, and work with future offenders on fixing their problems so that they don't become a bigger problem down the road. I think if we can figure something out maybe with social services or our police department and our law department to figure something out in a way that we can do this with the minor offenses, that would be great.
I think used to, we had this. We had something like this. I do remember us having like the weekends with the people that were with the mayor's court, and they were serving their, and this has happened here in Norwood before. So I think the liability was the reason why. So that's my guess. So
Mr. Moore,
and then because Mr. Moore mentioned that we send everything downtown now.
Well, Mr. Moore also stated that we just don't have the manpower. With Robert moving over to maintenance more at the...
No, I think it's a noble call. I think it's very noble. I just think because of the, you're going to have a hard time with the liability.
I think if we can get buy-in from the police chief, and depending on manpower, I think it could be accomplished. Mr. Bonsall?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Tracy. Yeah, I mean, I think there's examples, I mean, just Googling, other Ohio municipal diversion programs. I mean, there's definitely examples out there of it. And, most of these, I mean, the community service is a part of it, but some of them even incorporate some kind of an educational class with it. Most of them require some kind of like a supervision fee. So basically, to avoid the charge, there's some kind of fee to administer the program. So I think that, whatever, a reasonable fee. I mean, we're not trying to make money to the city off that. But there's like some different things. So I would just say, I mean, it sounds like you're on the right track. So for sure, I'd look at maybe some other cities and what they're doing, and I feel like it's something that could, be a win-win for everybody.
Yeah, and I'm still early in the process of doing the research on it, but, hopefully I can get a little bit of help from the law department when they're not too busy.
Sure, yeah, they're very busy.
Good luck.
Waiting for that day.
If I could, I'd just like to maybe add, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
This is your guys' committee. I don't want to interfere.
Oh, you're not even on this committee?
No, man.
Why would I
I brought this.
Why are we even letting you talk? No, I'm just kidding.
I brought a good point.
Just messing
If I
with
could,
you. I'm just
maybe
messing with
ask Mr. Moore, so to Mr. Braden, you got a good point about liability stuff. So so what I'm writing down here is maybe, we have like a diversion program, like Mr. Bonzo was saying, where you have classes, supervision fee, removes a charge, more for like the misdemeanors, nonviolent stuff like that. And also another separate head to that is like a community service program where you can go give hours and instead of paying a fine or a ticket or something like that. And with that, I think is where Mr. Braden's talking more of the liability thing. Correct me if I'm wrong. Is there a way that we can maybe have a waiver that they have to sign if they choose to take that community service path versus paying the fine outright?
I'd say the liability issue, it kind of depends on what they're doing, which is why we've never had like community service on the lateral, because it's just dangerous. And so, but like picking up trash in the parks, or I think they, washing police vehicles, that kind of thing, that's the kind of thing. There's not really a lot of liability there. Dealing with juveniles would be a different thing. Absolutely, there's no question, because if a kid gets hurt, you're just in trouble. That's part of the deal. No matter what the cause is. So I will say this, as far as you mentioned, just in passing, the economic hardship of people with fines that have to face fines. I just want to say this about Mayor's Court. They will work with you. It's, I don't have the money, fine. Just take some time. What do you need, 30 days, 60? I just started a job. I just got out of jail. I just started my job. I'm not going to, I got laid off. I just got out. What do you mean? You think you can pay it in 30 days? Well, I don't know. We'll tell you what, how about a payment program? Can you pay $10 a month? Can you pay $5 a month? And as long as they're paying, we're fine with that. I mean, they really, really do work with them, work with people on that. So, and when it comes to speeding, when it comes to DUI, when it comes, my philosophy that I learned when I was 19 and had racked up I don't know how many tickets was slow down. If you're going to go 85 on the lateral, if you're going to go 40 in a school zone, you can pay the fine. I don't have a lot of sympathy for it.
Yeah. I mean, also too, just to respond back is maybe because I know from certain family members of mine that have been through this process of fines in Mayor's Court, where they get like a reprieve or a payment plan, they don't pay, then they got to go back, they get like a bench warrant or whatever. Yep. And they get stopped by the police. And maybe, given this opportunity to go clean some cars, clean some parks, stuff like that, gives them, hey, I'm just going to go do that for a weekend and not have to worry about getting hassled by the cops when they see me. Or it just creates kind of in my opinion, a better way for them to handle this situation. And I didn't believe it was possible until I seen it. And maybe I'm just lucky that, somebody can have a $150 fine and that could really mess them up financially and put them behind the 8 ball, and even paying that little itty bitty bit weekly, which I think is generous as is, where a lot of them was like, hey, if I had that opportunity to just walk down the street and not have to, the cop sees me and knows me, and now I got to go back just to do community service kind of thing, I would have took that. And I just think it kind of just gives them a little bit of a better way. We get something out of it as well, and we don't have to use our manpower resources by hunting these people down and stopping them all the time.
And I totally agree that if we have the supervision available, if we have the personnel available to do it, it is great. And I have seen in court where, okay, you can't pay, how about this? You want to work, you want to do 2 days? And, that when that's available, that's definitely an option. So I would like to see, if the chief's willing, I'm more than happy to see that back up. I like having that option, certainly.
Mr. Hammond?
As far as, like I said, I got this started, and I forget because it was a collaboration, really, because I had people from the school system that came to me wanting to see if, hey, we could maybe save some of these kids from getting a record if we could have them doing community service or something like that instead. That way it doesn't go on their record. And I forget if it was under Rick Gibson or if it was under Ted.
I thought it was Ted.
Yeah, so we did have something going. Now, as far as the youth go, there is a lot of liabilities, as Mr. Braden alluded to, but, we could probably get key people and different, nonprofits or whatever that go through a background check, and then those organizations hold a certain amount of liability insurance. And then, they're the only ones. You could either, wash cars, pick up trash in the city or something like that, or we will send you over to Mr. James or, one of these other groups for whatever details that they have for so many hours. We could probably work through something like that to where if there was insured, as long as those people were insured, they had background checks, because obviously with juveniles, that liability jumps, extra, but yeah, a lot.
Anybody else have anything?
The only other thing that I want to say is, as a youngster running around here, I probably should have been in more trouble than I was in. And I credit that to the really good police officers that we have here in Norwood. And so they already have their, I don't, I just know this from experience, from growing up here, from run-ins, that they're not out to get in our youth in trouble. They already do some sort of this kid just messed up, and so that's weighed when they catch these youngsters doing things like that. I guarantee you, I know for a fact that this kid's done something wrong. He's messed up. We know he's, and so that happens all the time. So the diversion program, our police officers are really good when it comes to knowing that. So not saying that they're letting people off on crimes. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm saying when a youngster gets caught doing something like stupid and dumb because they're young, these cops know that. Our cops know that, and so they're working with these kids. I just want to mention that we have good police officers. That's the only other thing I want to say. Thanks. Appreciate it.
All right. If nobody else has anything to say, I think Pastor James would like to make a couple of remarks, which I'll allow, unless any objections.
Nope, no objection.
You're the chair. I got nothing to say about it.
Thank you all, Pastor Sonny James at 1830 Hopkins Avenue. I appreciate hearing all of the comments, and I'm really, more so than anything, just totally excited about this issue being on the table. It was actually before July. My brain was racking.
I was trying to think.
It's okay. One of the challenges that I often make in any arena is, not having the blind lead the blind. And in this area, I don't think we have anybody in our city that is more experienced in this. Today I spoke with Angela Chang, who's a public defender in the city of Cincinnati, been over 10 years. James Mack, who's a probation officer. He works with Norwood youth a lot for over 30 years. And together we have, I don't want to say 100% because there may be something that slid through the cracks. Diversion is always awesome. I remember back in the early 90s, I worked right here in Norwood. It's torn down now, Paycor is there now, but Newman Enterprises had this huge warehouse there. And we used to ship out food. We used to feed about 10,000 families every single month. And the program was called SHARE, Self-Help and Resource Exchange. And we used to bring in the juveniles from the court system. And they would do their community service hours. Then I began working with Dr. Herman Rice in Philadelphia, who really taught me a lot. And it's not about just the community service that they do. It's really about getting into the psyche of the youth. And I appreciate Mr. Braden, not really being exposed to a lot of the more high-risk things that go on in Norwood, like the gun use at Sherman Market, that I was there on the street, and I was able to get to the young people and tell them, let me take you in. And I'm the one that took the family to the police department. That's on record. You have to know how to relate to these individuals. What I would like to see us do is to, with Ms. Chang and Mr. Mack, proven success. Years ago, right here in Norwood, we did a program that Channel 9 came out and did. I called it On the Rough Side. And we didn't get much support back then. And I'm not worrying about back then, but there are a lot of youth in Norwood still today that need a lot of guidance. Years ago, you can check with Sharpsburg Elementary School right here in Norwood. They brought me in and we did an anti-bullying program. The whole 6th grade came in. Sister Kirsten and I, my wife, Lemuel, he was a 6th grader at the time. We came in and we did our anti-bullying program. And at the end of that program, there were so many children that ran up to us and said, you know what, I didn't realize it, but I'm a bully and I need help. And we took a lot of those Norwood residents, and this is all, we can all verify this information. We took those Norwood students and we put them in, over time, into service projects, but not just penalty-based service projects. It was character-building projects. And I remember Billy here in Norwood had an issue with school and he was being kicked out, and I met with his mom and his dad. We ended up taking the young man with youth, and he went on a field trip with them. So it was something fun, but at the end of that, he was over in the corner at the art museum. And I said, Billy, what's wrong? And he's wiping his eyes like this. And he said, you know what, Pastor James? No one ever told me was, I really make a difference. I just helped that little boy right there. And man, I can't tell you how great I feel. Nobody ever told me that I could make a difference. And what I'd like to do, if afforded the opportunity, we had the junior police program with the youth that has gone wayside. Lemuel was a big, big part of that. Elevations is a 501c3 nonprofit that has a history with working with young people and partnering with those. And to Mr. Braden's concern, liability is always an issue. But if you call Ms. Chang and you talk to her about the participatory defense program that is being done in Price Hill, she approached me a couple of years ago and asked if I would help them pilot this thing because of the success that we've had, guys. So we're not like trying this out. This is something that we've been doing this for years. And we're not just talking about someone who's stealing a bike. Many of you know, I know our law director could say, one day we had a conversation and he said, okay, well, pretty much good work, but that bullhorn is a little too loud. And, we've been on the street where there have been more than just bikes, when there was actually gunfire. And because when people know who you are and what you stand for, they really do want help. And so with our experience, it would be a great opportunity for more of these students, backed by public defenders, proven, backed by probation officers, proven. So they're not trying to reinvent the wheel. They're not trying to come up with something. They're not trying to, like Gabby said, well, I think years ago we did that and I started it up. That's all great. But we do need something now, because it's about getting to those youth before troubles happen. And if we can effectively partner together, Mr. Mack will come in here and he will tell you, I've worked with these folks, and I'm telling you, folks that should have been locked up to this day are responsible parents. When I first came into Norwood, I was one of the chairs with our local NAACP here in Cincinnati. And it was a couple that called me in and asked me to work with the family. And I did that. And I came into Norwood every day. And I saw young people struggling. And I worked with those young people every single day. So when we talk about liability issues and we talk about payroll, guys, whether we want to acknowledge it or not, there's a lot of work that's already been going on behind the scenes here in Norwood for free that has actually produced 100% success. And what I would encourage council to do, this committee to do, is to let's keep meeting. Let's bring in Angela Chain, proven. They partnered with the participatory defense program, and they formed that, and it's operating in Price Hill. So these aren't ideas that we just came up with. These are ideas that we've done and we've had success. We can bring in the young people that will tell you, wow, man, especially if it's not taking any city money. One thing you guys know about me and anything that I'm connected with, I have never, ever, ever asked this city to give me one dime to fund whatever I'm doing. In fact, Mr. Bonzo will remember, I asked even for our boxing program, and I said we would donate a proceed to the city. He's sitting right there. He can confirm that. I'm not asking to fund anything. What I'm asking is let's work with proven success where they can come in and tell you themselves and actually have people that do this for a living. No disrespect to a committee, none at all, none meant. But these people do this every day for a living, and they can come in here and help us route this program to where it's not just, because the reality is incarceration does not rehabilitate. And Mr. Moore, I spend a lot of time down there with the courts and the judges, and Judge Powers, who's now in an administrative role, is focusing now on improving the court image with our people that are facing problems. And all these folks are ready, and they're saying, hey, come on. We would love to be a part of what Norwood is going to do and to give us some longevity. And then here's the kicker. Our Explorers program, guys, that was a beautiful program. And I understand budget cuts. I understand that. All that's behind us. But wouldn't it be awesome to take one of your proven, lovable, awesome cadets like a Lemuel and give him an opportunity as he's now trying to pursue his way in the adult world, and maybe use that to partner to rebuild that Explorers program. And it may start small. It's not about the numbers, guys. It's about creating extra opportunities. So if you have any questions for me, I'm here. But when Amodio was here with the schools, they brought me in with families, and those families would come in here and tell you, if not for what they presented to us, I don't know where I'd be right now. I don't know where my child would be right now. I don't know where my grandchild would be right now. So I'm asking this committee to consider, let's sit down, let's keep talking, meet with some of the experts that do this with proven facts to then be able to say, hey, let's formulate something. Let's not reinvent the wheel, guys, because we want to make sure that, whatever. Let's go with proven facts, and let's formulate it around that. And I'm open to share. I'm kind of, with my other business, I'm kind of really, really busy. But, Elevations is proven to work with these young folks, and they'll come in here and tell you. I thought I was doing community service, but it wasn't about the community service. I walked away from Elevations going, what was I thinking? Like, as you know, one of my favorites. Like, I must have been a bonehead. I'm out here doing this knucklehead stuff when, man, I could be out here helping some children, giving them the help that I just didn't get. Because the reality is, we got a lot of great kids in our school system. But a lot of times, those children don't go to the counselor or to the football coach and say, hey, coach, I'm thinking about going and robbing a bike tomorrow. They don't have that conversation. And then we have it when it's too late. And as Angela Chang would tell you, unfortunately, Mr. Moore, the idea of the juvenile system is to provide a gateway for that bridge. But unfortunately, sir, the reality is, and I've been there with these youth, when the judges say, you know, we want to help you. Okay? 6 months. And so when you talk to these experts, they'll tell you, we've been at this for years and trying to lobby and trying to give these young people different options. I would love to see Norwood, Ohio begin to embrace this again, or whatever was in the past, but I just haven't seen anything quite like what's been done behind the scenes yet with a formal program. I just haven't seen it. Yes, sir. I didn't know if he...
Yeah, if I could, I'm just curious, you talked about the program in Price Hill. Where do the kids come from that go into that program?
So,
how do they get into it?
So that would be a great question for Ms. Chang. So I don't want to overstep because I want her to be able to explain everything in detail to you.
And Ms. Chang, she works for that program, or she works
Public Defender's Office.
So she works for the Public Defender's Office. So my guess would, because what it sounded like to me is that these are kids going through the juvenile justice system, and that's how they end up in this program.
Yeah,
so I'm just kind of getting to the question of, they have, like, the kids come in, and you talked about having professionals, and that's the hard part, is we don't have, I mean, we would have to, in order for Norwood to have its own separate program, is the city to have its own program, we would have to set up that infrastructure with people that know what they're doing, so we don't end up doing more harm than good.
Yeah, no, I understand.
And so I'm just wondering, like, if the kids that are going to the Price Hill program are ones that are, because they're funneled there through the through the juvenile justice system, is there, I mean, I think maybe the path forward might be to, okay, so let's work with the groups we have in Norwood to have Norwood be a fund for the Norwood kids that end up going through the juvenile justice system. I'm just wondering if is that where you're going with this, because it kind of sounds like it.
Yeah, my main focus, guys, just for the record, I'm Norwood. You know, you can check with my peers. I'll say, hey, Pastor, I want your help with this. I want to do that. Are we going to do it in Norwood? Well, I'm sorry. I'm not available. I love the direction that we're going as a community, and I'm focusing on Norwood. That would be something that the council would those parameters. Personally, my initial concern is Norwood. I've seen enough crime, like Mr. Braden may have never come across his yard, so he may not know it exists. So I'm just saying, with all due respect to everybody and whatever, they may not have seen the stuff that I know we've seen. Now, you can go out there right now, and I guarantee you, there's some undercover fights happening, like the huge fight that happened at Norwood High School that we were called in at, and when we showed up on the scene, I mean, it was pandemonium. But yet, even some of those youth we were able to work with, and those youth right now, a couple of them, full-time employed, taking care of their children, and that's what it's all about for me. Just seeing people progress in their life and being given an equal shot to advance their life like everybody else, and given the right parameters. And again, Angela Chang from the Public Defender's Office, this program was a pilot program from a program in Silicon Valley, California. So it's still in its pilot infancy stages, but it addresses the liability issues. It's something that's actually real. So we don't have to, we don't have to wonder if it's real or not. And there are people attached to it that put their name on it because they believe in it. Like I said, I was just too busy, so I couldn't, extend any service to that. So they went on and continued, and Daniel Hughes and those guys, Will Porter and all those guys, they're doing a phenomenal job, and I commend them. But I'm Norwood. I would love to see Norwood really, really rock this program. And my only thing is, let's not reinvent the wheel. I'm sorry, Mr. Bonser.
No, you're fine. I mean, mine's just more just general comments about how to move this forward. It's not necessarily questions. I will note that on your 13-point plan, a diversion program was number 7. So you have been talking about this,
For years.
Yep. But mine are just comments. So whenever, so just let me know when you're ready for.
Good.
Okay, great. So, like I said, I think, Mr. Tracy, I think you've got, everybody here sounds like we're pretty enthusiastic, pretty much forward with it. I mean, I really actually don't see this as much. I mean, I was kind of looking up some Ohio Revised Code, and it looks like more the ORC really kind of authorizes, the courts and the prosecutor's offices to kind of set up like these kind of programs. So while I think there is some council involvement, I think probably next steps, now that you know that like there's not going to be big objections, it's probably to go and try to find maybe programs that match, and then see what the city administration and the law department, they're going to be the ones that are going to have the heavy lifting.
Well, that's why I asked if we had anything like the unofficial juvenile, because most cities, villages around here have an unofficial juvenile, some don't.
Is this just going to be juvenile focused, or going to be adults?
No.
Okay, just make sure. So, because I think it's great to have adults, of course, as well.
Correct. I just brought that up because I wanted to see if we still had the unofficial juvenile program.
The other thing that I would look at, I was kind of thinking about this as Mr. James was talking, because again, Mr. James said, we don't necessarily need to reinvent the wheel. I wonder if there's programs that, at the county level, or that work with the county, that could be integrated into our mayor's court as well, in the sense that, the option could be given to mayor's court, and they could still probably do their community service here, but like the actual administration, when it comes to like making sure that the boxes are checked and all that other stuff, instead of having to hire somebody at the city, or somebody have to spend time at the city, if there's already resources doing that for other communities, and I don't know if there are. I really have no idea. It might be good to at least check into that, because as Mr. Moore kind of alluded to, this is going to be a lot of administrative heavy lifting to make this happen. And I think it's a worthwhile cause for sure. Don't get me wrong there. But if there is a way that we can kind of just like send our people, if you will, I don't mean that, just send them down there, or to utilize those services, it could make this an even speedier process, I guess, to start.
Yeah, and I've been thinking as Pastor James has been speaking, and Mr. Moore as well. I think the idea of having a feeder system into the city, I don't want to see kids from the city of Cincinnati coming to Norwood, because if for instance Pastor James is part of this and he decides to go out and clean the parks up, I don't want a city of Cincinnati kid cleaning our parks up. I want to see the feeder system, if we look into that option, more focused on the Norwood kids that are affected down there, so that when they do come to this feeder system in Norwood, they're working in their community, they're helping their community members. And it gets us back to where we were back 30 years ago. Good Lord, I'm old. 30 years ago, where we were a community. We were very tight-knit. Everybody knew each other. Everybody was able to walk out on the street without any problems. We need to get back to the tight community that we used to have. And that's I know that Pastor James is in agreement with that, to try and tighten up the community. So if we can possibly work with the juvenile system at 2020 and the probation officers to create some sort of feeder grid for the Norwood juveniles, maybe possibly the adults down at county, to feed that into a program, specifically Norwood based, is what I would like to see somebody look into.
Yeah, and if I could, again, this is your committee, but just, having brought it here, some of the things I'd like to see, I think Mr. Bonds was on to something there as far as looking into programs that are existing and using kind of a model of that to make it fit our city. But I would like to see as much of this going forward, the more internal, the better. Keeping it here, benefiting our city, not just sending our people out into the Hamilton County and Cincinnati areas. There's a program I'm hesitant to even discuss because it's still in its infancy, and I still got to meet with the rec director regarding it and all that, but talks about a Big Brother type program in the city for youth in Norwood. Working over at Sharpsburg Elementary, I see a lot of kids that could benefit, and having something like that through the rec kind of brings it into the rec center there, where now they see sign-up stuff. Now they see this, and it's like hitting the lottery for a kid who wants to do these sports, but their parents might not know about it. And a lot of these kids might come through something like a program like this to where they're sent there, eye-opening for them. I would like to attend another meeting if you guys seem it necessary and hear from some of the experts that Pastor James has mentioned, discussed, and just kind of hear what they say, get an in-depth look at their program, see if that fits for our community as well. Basically, he brought this idea to Mr. Tracy and I would like to see him included in this process as much as we can with his past experiences in it. So, yeah, those are just my thoughts about going forward.
And something that I'd been thinking about probably at the beginning of this meeting, and it's just something to kind of build on if we can develop something like this, is possibly working with the school system for those that are truant, those that are missing school days, those that are getting into trouble at school, you know, maybe possibly incorporating the school system into it as a way of, instead of punishment, they help their community out versus being punished for truancy, being punished for fighting on the school ground or things like that. But again, that's something at a later date, once we can get something established within the criminal portion of it, then we can move on to trying to work with the schools and helping that out a little bit.
And just for clarity for any council members who's still there, Mr. John Stacy, any of you can call him and ask him what his personal direct experience has been with us with some of these at-risk youth, and he will give you some serious stories that have turned successful. And so, again, this is all proven. You know, we can pull the thing with Channel 9 and show this is really where the rubber meets the road. And again, I can't remember who mentioned it, but when you talk about a feeder program that can help also sustain a local nonprofit, it becomes a win-win, because nonprofits need what? To sustain themselves. One of the biggest issues is volunteers and bodies. Well, with Elevations, if any of you would you know, I know Mr. Gabbard has come and he's seen a biracial group of people, and the whole focus is on character building. One of the things that she teaches them, she chants, "Be the change," and everyone in the room, including parents, has to say, "I am the change." And then she expects them to walk in that. So you have to come with a certain mentality. And getting to these folks, and I'll close with this, thank you for your time, but getting to these young folks before anything happens and letting them know that there is something there, I'm telling you, it just produces a different feel when you do address them. So the judicial part is one, to work with them there, but the other part is, you know, letting them know that there's some group out there. Sometimes these kids just need to talk. I can't tell you how many times kids have come up to my house and just say, "Hey, you know, I've heard about you. Would you mind if can I talk to you?" Like a little boy, Kenny, just came up and I was like, "Who are you?" He's like, "My name's Kenny." Like, I feel like I'm about to do something. I feel like I'm about to do. And you could call his mother now and she'll tell you, he changed my son's life just by talking. Letting them know you don't have to wait until you're in trouble to do something. And I think if we formulate this with a proven, Elevations has been here, guys, for 5 years, and they're not going anywhere. So if we just work together, and I appreciate our council member saying that, you know, saying he would want me to be a part of it. Let me just say for the record, guys, it's not about me. It's really not. It's about the people we serve. It's about where we believe God is going to launch us as a community. And some things maybe I can be a part of. Some things I can't. Oh, well, so what? Look at the diversity, racial diversity that's happening in our city. I don't work for I can't even think of the name now. The road crew, not the road crew, but I can't think. But one of our former wrestlers works. And when I see Dominique driving through the city of Norwood, I'm like, yeah, baby, that's not me. I don't make a dime in Norwood. When I see that our mayor's committee has African Americans on it, I'm like, yeah, baby, that's a victory. It doesn't always have to be me. I'm just here saying, this is stuff we need, guys. Let's work on it. Now, of course, the stuff that I do better, it'd be nice if I could be a part of something, but it's not about me. It's really about the cause. And Dr. Martin Luther King, he told us best, I may not be there when you get there. I may not see it. So part of my push, guys, is to just see people grow, see people advance. I'm very fortunate and blessed. So it's not about me. Please keep that in your forefront. Just don't assign it to people that are brand new learning on the job. That's a bit frustrating. So God bless you all. Unless there's anything else, I think we've talked about it.
Any other comments from committee members? No. If I could, I'd like to take a couple months to allow the law department to review some of the options that we've discussed tonight. I'd like to try and set something somewhere around August for the next update on this. That way it gives them, think that's sufficient time, or do you need a little?
I'm not sure what you want.
I'll discuss it with you. Just basically looking into the program in Price Hill, what it might take to set something like that up here, possibly doing a feeder system with juvenile and county court for just our offenders here in the city, if that's possible. I'm going to probably say they're going to say no, but at least we can look into it. And then see where we can go about trying to create something like maybe Price Hill has.
Should be able to find out something.
And it just, with all due respect, if, we already have professionals that are ready to communicate now.
We understand that.
Okay. All right.
We'll get in touch with them.
Okay, good deal.
All right.
Did he came in, Lonnie, did you have something? All right.
Just here to observe.
All right, okay. You came in, I didn't know if you had something you wanted to run in and say.
Thank you, Gabby.
If all members don't have any further comments, we can adjourn this committee meeting.